In this Assassin's Creed Shadow video, we're going to be going over my early game tool master build. This build focused heavily on using tools as well as the assassination tree to essentially be the classic master assassin that you come to love for Assassin's Creed. This is a very early game version that should be fairly easy for you to get off the ground, as most if not all these parts can be found in the first region, and this is going to be a good baseline build for you to grow off of as you progress through Assassin's Creed Shadows. At the end of the video, I will show a full showcase on the highest of difficulty so you can have a better idea of how the build works in action, and let's dive into the build. Alright, so now that you have a better understanding of what the build is, let's talk about the pieces and where to find them and how to put this build all together. And first we're going to start with the armor, and we're going to look at the Tools Master's gear. What this does is throwing a kunai at the closest enemy after an assassination. This build is going to be heavily assassination focused with a combination of utilizing your tools, and so this is going to be some really solid synergy, and we're going to get some extra armor damages so that we make sure we break through the armor. Now in my current experience, I've noticed that enemies tend to be aware whenever you actively kill one of their allies nearby, and this will throw a kunai, but whenever they're aware, their armor segments tend to actually take into account, unlike when they're not aware. And that's why we're putting the 20 additional armor damage in this individual piece. Now if your kills are a little bit more cleaner and they don't do that, you can put anything you want here. It's just totally up to you, but for our early game build at level 13 where you probably won't have a lot of things, I found having this extra armor damage to be a little bit more valuable for those enemies that get aware. And most importantly, we're going to be using this for the affix that gives us damage with tools, because this is a very tool focused build. We want to make sure we get as much tool damage. We get crit damage, we get vulnerability, we get HP from it. So it's a very solid item to have. Now in order to find this is the base. You simply need to come over here to the Katano Castle and simply complete the area. It's going to have a handful of samurai that you need to take down, and then just find the chest at the top. This is a very straightforward piece to get. It should be one of the first castles that you assault anyway, so very easy to get. Next, we're going to be getting the Tool Master's Mask, and yes, again, this is a Tool Master focused build, so we want to utilize this stuff. And what this does is shurikens no longer break on hard impact, and then we specifically put health segments removed on assassinations with kunais, because generally speaking, you want to utilize your kunai for the primary portion of your damage, because this is a assassination tool focused build. I've said this a couple of times already. So having the ability to actually get one more additional health segment is going to be pretty big to help you out in finishing off those kills. And from where we got the Tool Master's chest, you just come over here to the left to Amagaski, and this is where it's going to be. This one does have a lot more enemies. I believe there's 5 samurai that you need to take down, but for the most part they're not that difficult to take down. They're pretty low level for the most part, and this is where you're going to find it. Take it down the samurai and go to the top and get the chest. You'll have this item. Next, for our trinket, we have the Amateratsu's Blessing, which is going to give us crit chance, and then it's going to give us 10% damage per unused ability slot. Now, what's really important with this is the fact that early on you probably may not invest into some skills. I'll go over a handful of skills in the skill section that you may want to consider, but you may not have a ton of skills. You may have 1 or you may have 2 depending on your points, and this is just going to give you a pretty sizable damage increase. Like right now this build has 30% damage increase, and I think that's pretty damn good for the most part, considering this is like a really early game item that's giving you 30% increased damage. So where can you find the Amaterasu's Blessing? So this is the base here, and on the right side of Sakai there will be the Okofan, and within the Okofan there will be this trinket. Now keep in mind, this trinket is super easy to get. It's a very straightforward path, and you can just walk right in with Noe. So yeah, go ahead and get this as soon as possible, because it's generally pretty good regardless of the build you're playing. Next, for our major weapon, we're going to be using the Shinobi's Fury. This is going to give us more vulnerable damage, and weak point attacks make enemies vulnerable a second time, and then we're putting a 10% damage increase in Graving. And honestly, one thing to keep in mind when it comes to the game, sometimes you make mistakes and you actually get into combat, and you're going to make them vulnerable. You're going to typically try to evade and parry and things of the sort, and this is going to make them vulnerable, and then you can just do your weak point strike, and then it's going to make them vulnerable again, and then you can do a secondary follow-up weak point strike. And this is just in my opinion, like one of the most burst heavy combos you can do early on. And this is kind of fitting to your playstyle, seeing that you're trying to just kill enemies as quickly as possible. Honestly, you're not trying to get into combat because you're trying to like be as stealthy as possible, but it's inevitable that you will eventually get into combat. So this is kind of the purpose of this item, just to give you a little bit more like man fighting potential that you otherwise wouldn't have. Now, in order to get this item, you need to take down Wakasa. This is one of the members that you run across during the actual like beginning of the game, and she is, generally speaking, the first primary target you probably should take out, seeing that she is probably the weakest. And yeah, you just basically do the main story quest for her and take her down, and you'll get this item. For our mastery, we're gonna go over Assassin, Entanto, and Tools because that's the major part of it. So under the assassination tree, we're going to make sure we have Executioner because we're going to be doing vulnerable damage. And then we're going to be picking up double assassinate because this is going to be one of our primary assassination things. I think this is actually one of the most cost effective points in the game that you can get, so make sure you get double assassinate in this tree. The other thing that is super important is getting the assassination damage 1. This is going to remove 1 additional health segment whenever you assassinate, so this is a worthwhile pick. Moving over to our tools. For the most part, you're grabbing literally everything. Shinobi Bell to get the Shinobi tools, Smoke Bomb to get the actual Smoke Bomb, and you want Enduring Haze so that you can have more time on the Smoke Bomb to make you finish off those kills. You're going to have Kunai passively, but you want to get the Kunai damage because this is going to synergize really well with your other Kunai increase, and this is going to make it easier for you to almost always one-shot pretty much everything unless they're egregiously higher level than you. We're going to get the Shuriken as well because we want those, and then I actually think Quick Throw is pretty decent for those moments where you need to just throw it without really having to aim. You're also going to get Tool Professional, and then every time larger tool bag comes up, this is a primary pickup because it's just going to give you way more tools. There's a couple of these on the tree like here and here, but you're always picking this up. This is always going to be first priority, so always get larger tool bag. Now for your Tanto tree. Personally, I feel like grabbing backstab is really important because like posture attacks that hit enemies in the back will trigger a weak point attack. And obviously this synergizes really well with your Shinobi Fury. Weak point attacks make the enemy vulnerable a second time. So this is, in my opinion, the only thing that's somewhat mandatory is grabbing this here. You can go with any of these other skills if you desire. I actually think Shadow Piercer is probably one of the better ability because it makes them vulnerable. It's going to cost you 5 mastery points. I don't have it right now with this build specifically at this point, but again, it's going to be depending on where you're at in the game. I also think Gap Seeker is also pretty decent too because it's going to just help you with armor piercing in those like combat situations. And then Backstabber, again, it's going to be pretty decent as well. For the most part, generally speaking, unless you want to have passive damage, you're not trying to fight as much, pick up these abilities for the most part. Otherwise, I would generally just stick to backstab and just play the assassin playstyle for the most part. Remember, every time that you actually take an ability, this reduces the damage of this of Amaterasu's blessing, so that's kind of why I'm telling you to be careful on using those abilities. But that's pretty much it for the build. At the end, I'm just going to do a quick run through one of the locations just to show you how the build plays in action. If you don't want to see that, you know, that's pretty much the end of the video. Leave me a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, let's dive into playing the build and let you see it in action. Alright, so we raised the difficulty to the highest that it can be. And I'm just going to show you one of the locations that we're going to assault. Bunch of straightforward kills for the most part. Nothing to see here, just your friend dead on the ground. Normal stuff. Shadow of the Night is super powerful at disguising you. The guy there. Guy sleeping. The enemy there. Who sees me? Eagle eyes.
That's it.
Some straightforward kills here.
Thought I heard something. I'll find out what's going on. Enjoy this.
We're gonna disengage back. Just so he doesn't aggro more friends.
Only cowards hide in the shadows. What was that? Hmm? Who's out there? Die, Egan.
Oh, can't block that. These guys are incredibly nimble. Holy. And that's the beauty of having the perk that make it so that those shurikens don't break on my helmet. So you can always get those back as long as you hit them with it. Now we're kind of hurt because expert mode is kind of BS if I'm being honest. They have like eagle eyes and crazy evasion and stuff, but it's fine. Most of you probably just gonna play normal anyway, because that feels like the better difficulty tuning. Doesn't feel egregiously like bad in my opinion. Unfortunately though, we are out of bombs. I mean kunai. It doesn't do enough damage. I mean, in theory, could go. So that guy's gonna come this way. There's a guy up there. He shouldn't see me.
Who killed you?
Who killed you?
What was that noise?
Easy rations. Ideally a kunai here. Yeah, we got one. This will make our next kill a little bit easier. We can always go get this one back. That's the beauty of being able to actually land your kunai. You can always go pick them up. One feels like a straightforward kill for the most part. Yasuke would be better here. Because there's arrows everywhere. There's an elite there.
What's making that sound?
We're gonna whistle that. See if he comes over here. Super easy kill. Don't know if those guys are looking. I don't think so. I don't know if I can double assassinate this one. Simple assassinate. Pretty good. And as you probably can tell, this is more of a traditional assassin style setup where you can just go around and kill everybody as an assassin. Is that everything? I think we killed everyone. No? Yeah. Alright, yeah. I think we killed everyone. So that's just a showcase of the build in action. I'm gonna tag these resources. But yeah, that's pretty much the showcase. Hopefully it gives you a better idea of the build. That's the highest difficulty available, and for the most part we walked through it. We had a little bit of a problem with the archer, but that's simply because I missed my stab. You know, it happens to the best of us. But yeah, hopefully you liked the video. Leave me a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next Assassin's Creed video very soon.